right, welcome in everybody. Of course, my name is Brian or Faeran. Welcome to the LaunchBox celebration. I hope you're having a good LaunchBox celebration week. We had lots of fun on Monday, listening in with Astrobob over on his stream, and hope that you had a chance to pick up a discounted license if you haven't. And hello everybody, chat. Yes, for people watching this on YouTube later or something like that, I was a bit late. I would say that it's not my fault, but I would be lying. How you doing, Focus? It's been a little while. Yeah, it's been a little while. How you doing, guys? MMO Gaming. It has been a while. Average Game Noob. Welcome in, Andre. That's right, Game Noob. Arrived exactly when I was supposed to. Yeah, so I hope everybody's been enjoying the week. We've got discounts, giveaways in today's stream. At some point today, we will be giving away another secret code that you can add to the giveaway if you have entered into that giveaway. So that's good. Apparently I'm blocking it on this browser, but I shouldn't be entering it anyway. But we've got some pretty cool prizes. This controller, which I don't even think they're shipping yet. And it sounds really amazing. The Retroid Pocket 5 handheld. Yeah, just give you an ROG Ally, right? You gotta wait for the that Microsoft one, that Microsoft Ally or Xbox Ally. That one looks pretty cool. You can have a retro mini PC. Steam giveaways is happening. We're giving away LaunchBox license. Just make sure, and thank you for that follow there, that when you are signing up, the first question that you get asked is, which things do you want to win? And make sure that you actually want to win those things. Like, don't say that you want a LaunchBox license if you already have one, kind of thing, because you might win. Anyway, who wants to correct Joe Viking there? Hey, Joe. Welcome in. Today, I've got a good stream. Essentially, LaunchBox has been out for a long time. And the problem is, because we have an application that's been out for so long, there is a good deal of tutorials out there in the wild that deals with a snapshot of what LaunchBox looked like back whenever the video was created. So if you're following a video from like 2017, don't expect it to work, or at least not work in the same way as it does now, or not be the best way to do something as it is now. And so a lot of people fall into that trap. Definitely look at the date that the tutorial was made. So in this stream, I'm going to go through a brand new build from scratch, starting with a file, like everybody does, installing LaunchBox, and going through some of the foundational steps to building a build from scratch. Going to import some games, going to import some storefront games, going to import some emulators in kind of different ways. Going to import, going to assign some documents or download some videos or all that stuff, whatever that we end up getting to in the 2 hours or so that we have here. Along the way, there's going to be a lot of breaks, so we're going to have a lot of discussion. If anybody here in the chat, what's great about this is that you guys actually can, if you ever wondered about a feature or wanted clarity about something about the feature, or didn't fully understand a specific feature, let me know, and along the way we can take right look at it, and maybe I can do something about it and teach along the way. The goal is to teach along the way, so expect me to say a whole lot of what's happening as it's happening, in the hope that that helps you guys out. All right, let's get right started. Yeah, for people that do want to purchase, LaunchBox is on a discount in the purchase page here. You could take a look at all the prices. And don't forget that if you already have a license, you can go to the Renew or Upgrade Windows license, Renew or Upgrade Android license. They're normally on a discount, but they're on a discounted discount right now. For example, you can upgrade your old license for just $30 on the website right now. So it's a good time. If you need a license, this is the time to purchase it. We don't have sales very often, and this is the one time that we kind of do. Last thing I mentioned before I jump into anything is that we do have a LaunchBox strategy guide that is growing by each week. There's not that many of us that are contributing to this. This is essentially LaunchBox's most up-to-date documentation about how to do certain things or about certain features. We try to get to an article and add to it as we go throughout our daily routines. LaunchBox for Windows has a lot of stuff in there now. I believe we just got a music feature documentation in their article, but lots of stuff about theming, lots of stuff about features, and expect it to get bigger and bigger. And what's great about this strategy guide is that it's got a search feature, so you don't have to really go through everything at once. But if you have a very specific question, you can ask it, how do I set up background music in Big Box, for example? And it will try to search the articles and come up with something, here, music in Big Box. Or you can ask the AI. Let's see how the AI does. This is a blind test, so I don't know how it's going to do. There, AI has come back and said to set up background music in Big Box, you'll place your music files in specific folders within the LaunchBox directory using Windows File Explorer. It actually did pretty good there. So there you go. Before you want to ask anywhere, I would recommend going to this website, feedback.launchbox.gg/help. It's right there. Asking or perusing the guide. If you don't find the answer there, then you can ask us in the community. Sorry if I'm missing some of you guys in the comments there. What sold you on the license is that it's DRM free. I think a lot of people enjoy the license because of that fact, myself included, and we definitely would never change that. But you're currently working on a media mini PC hooked up to your TV. I really want to do that as well, and I feel like this might be the build that I'm going to set that up. So let's take a look and jump right in. As most people would start with, we start with a file, a setup file like this. Let's open it up. Do you know the Blue Puppet? Welcome in. You have a lifetime license. That's good to hear. It's very good. You build arcade machines. That's pretty awesome. What kind of arcade machines do you build? Going to accept the agreement, and now it's asking me where do I want to put this. I'm going to put this on my T drive /LaunchBox. There we go. Next. Don't need to create a start menu, but you always could. One LaunchBox, if you have multiple instances of LaunchBox, then what's going to happen is that the last setup file, the last setup that you go through, if it creates that start menu, it replaces the old one with this new one. So if you have LaunchBox set up in the start menu in Light and you like to access it from the start menu, well, if you only have one build, I'd recommend just keeping that checked. You have an arcade machine inside of a hard drive? No, I'm assuming you mean you put arcade games on your hard drive through LaunchBox. Awesome. Those arcade games are very much nostalgic to a lot of us. All right. Here is the brand new welcome wizard of LaunchBox. So for first-time users, you will be presented with this. If you hit this button right here, it's going to skip this welcome wizard and you will never see it again. You'll be plopped into LaunchBox with a blank slate. So if that's what you want, you just want to get into LaunchBox and you want nothing to appear in LaunchBox, hit that X, and that's what that will do. And way too fast, have there been any major improvements and easier wizard on the setup for Technoparrot integration? There has, but probably not what you want. Essentially, there's like an emulator profile for Technoparrot. You would go into the add emulator section, you would type out Technoparrot or choose it from the drop down menu, and it will populate all the settings, which are the things that usually get people confused. There are some command lines that make it work that will auto-populate. Outside of that, if you've ever set up Technoparrot, especially recently, the way that Technoparrot works is that you download it, you set it up, and then you have to import each game individually and configure it individually inside of Technoparrot. Technoparrot needs to know where the game is, needs to get configured first. We, as a LaunchBox launcher, cannot help with that setup. Hopefully that makes a little sense. We can't set up Technoparrot for you. So the best thing that we could do as a next step is download the application for you, open it up, and basically say, here's Technoparrot, set it up now. And if you set it up, we could potentially then import the games, but that's not the hard part, to be honest, with Technoparrot. Once the games are imported, there's a folder inside of the Technoparrot emulator that has XML files that you would essentially just drag and drop into LaunchBox, and then it would just work. ED, your media takes up more space in the games. I would say that can't be surprising anymore in 2025, right? Most people, let's say the very limited amount of people, might choose 5 media, like images or videos or something, per game. So if you think about that, that's 5 times the amount of files as games that you have. And that's modest, right? Most people want more than just 5 images. You know, you got the box front and the box back and the spines and the clear logos and the fan art backgrounds and the this and the that, whatever. So you got quite a lot of media, and that stuff does add up. You don't have videos yet, Focusboard. Yeah, you definitely need to get some videos in there. And Barney, the 3D boxes? So you mean the 3D box models, which are actually separate from 3D boxes. Box images. Now think about this, Barney, because you want all 4 spines. There's actually, yeah, there's 4 sides to the box. Think about this. Per game, are you okay with needing to load the box front, the box back, left spine, right spine, top and bottom, which usually isn't different. So that's 6 images that you would have to load per game if you had that in a list, for example, and you saw 10 games on your screen. That means Big Box would have to load 6 times 10, 60 images like that, and then present it to you. You can see how that might become a problem that we might be able to overcome. I don't know, that's quite a problem. And then on top of that, my question to you, is there anywhere on the internet that you can find any kind of reliable packs of, let's say, a top of a box for a platform? Or the right, like, are we, like, what comes first, I guess, is the question. The media that you need for the feature of 3D models, or the 3D model feature? Do we build an entire feature based on images that don't actually exist on the internet? I would say even with the one spine, penetration in the game's database isn't, like, it's been there for quite a while, and it's not that much. The reason why there was so much to begin with was because there was already projects from like 2010, even before then, that used that spine. So people were creating packs of these images with that one spine for things like WeFlow and stuff like that. Yeah, someone's gonna have to buy every single box for every platform and scan them all. That'll take a few minutes. Anyway, we're on the first page of this welcome wizard. Let's do this. First step, do you have any games? So this welcome wizard is asking if I have any ROMs somewhere. I could either point it to a folder filled with platforms, so like this one, and it would scan it properly, or I could point it to specific platforms. In this case, let's do some specific platforms. What are your guys' favorite platforms? I'll see if I can do them. Like a console or handheld. I'm going to choose my favorite, Nintendo Entertainment System. We got MS-DOS. Actually, I don't know if my MS-DOS... It is not. It's got one game in it. I'm sorry. Sorry. Focus. Yeah, that might not work. But... Oh, there's some caveats here, guy. This will not work for arcade systems. I'll have to do that separately. Anything arcade-based. And I'll explain why later, but it essentially has to do with MAME has a very specific import process that deals with different files that are specific to MAME. But it will work for most consoles, computers. For example, I'll do Scum VM since that's a little different and I know that folder's good. You got Jaguar CD, so let's do that one. I don't think I have... Do I have a Commodore 64? I am so sorry, I don't have a Commodore 64 here for you. Game Boy Advanced. I do have Game Boy Advance. The original Xbox. I do have the original Xbox. PlayStation 2. I do have that one. How has no one said the Genesis or Mega Drive? Oh, too late. Okay, apparently I can only do one at a time. I should not have done that. All right, let's do it one at a time. You can see how each time that I do it one at a time, it groups them into different sections. And then let's do this differently so I can show it off. But if I were to choose this root drive, what you'll see here, it's going to take a while because I have a lot in here. That now it's got this like new card with like a ton of platforms in there. It's basically said, hey, I identify this folder as a folder of folders of platforms and therefore import them as such. You can see here arcade, even though it was in there, it says because of potential complications with the import, this platform cannot be imported via this specific wizard. It can be imported by another one. I would love to import all of these, but we just simply don't have the time. I will leave certain ones here that you guys mentioned, and I'll import some of these in a different way later, let's say. No one said any of these. Look at all these good systems I have to get rid of. This import is semi-smart though. There are certain platforms that have specific parsing logic, like Nintendo Wii U, RPCS3. You know, if you're bringing in those files that are basically folders filled with files, we will parse them correctly. ScumVM will parse the folder name instead of the whole bunch of files that are in there. Oh, you caught Rowdy. You caught the Philips CDI there at the last second, so I'm gonna keep that in there. Getting rid of. Man, no one said any of these platforms, eh? Or if I'm missing some of them, we can always import them another way. Tempest, hope you're doing well. Things are going well. We are like 30 minutes in, and we're on the second screen of the Welcome Wizard. Okay. All right, let's stick with this list. Oh, you can see that I'm adding a couple of them separately. So let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. And so now there's a whole bunch of lists. That basically means that you could potentially, I don't know why you would have this, have import games from multiple places on your drives at the same time. That's what this concept kind of looks like. Anyway, next. Storefront games. Yeah, it's an interesting concept. Drag and drop. I don't think it works in the Welcome Wizard. We could have done that, but, you know, how many ways do you want to do this the same exact thing? How many ways do you want us to dev to do the exact same thing? Let's do one of these. I have a lot of games, I'm realizing, on these storefronts. And so I would say this. If you don't want us to import any storefront games, you can simply uncheck this. This is the automated import process. And unchecking this in the wizard, we won't import any of the games. If you still want this on, or so let's say you wanted this off, but you still wanted storefront games, you could still log in to whatever you want, press next. We just won't automatically import them. And there is a manual process to import the games in LaunchBox, if you'd rather take control. I'll do some of the, I don't know, easy ones here, I guess. Which one should I do? At this point, I'm going to keep this on. If I keep this on, you'll see that all of my settings are to import installed games, although you'll see some of them do require that you log in, and since I haven't logged in, it will not import these installed games, but it'll import my installed games just by having this on, even if I don't sign in, just because I have this. So if you wanted this on but you didn't want a specific storefront, you could set that to none, and then it just wouldn't import any Epic games. See, if I wanted all of my games, it would require a login. Somebody tell me, which storefront should I import all my games for? GOG. All right, let's do that. All of my GOG games, which means, hey, I've got to type this in. I'm going to go over here. There we go. So this is going to have all of my games. You'll actually see, if you mouse over one of these login buttons, it will tell you what the benefits are to logging in. For example, oh, thanks for that. Thanks for that Prime. That Prime sub. I'm gonna butcher your name, but Tampoon. Glad to see you here. What was I saying? If you want to see the benefits for signing in, yeah, just mouse over it. So for example, for GOG, the benefits are that, I can import all of my games. I will get achievement support, and you'll get playtime integration, which means it'll grab the playtime directly from GOG and import it in. So that's the benefit of GOG, for example, whereas with Steam, same benefits if I logged in. With the Xbox store, I don't have the playtime, or we don't have achievement support for this, so it will allow me to import install games and all games. And so that's a way to tell what each one will actually provide you. Let's go with this. All right, so what is this? Make your games look awesome. This is essentially telling LaunchBox which media types that you want to download with the automatic download process. So just like set it up once, tell us what you want to download, and every time you use the automated process to import games, it will use that. If you go through the manual process, the goal is that you still can decide something different than this. So if you were to import any game through the, 5-7 different ways that you can import games, those won't use these settings. You can essentially pick whatever you want on the fly. But for the automated import process, you're basically saying, this is what I want. When I tell you that I have a new game, download this media. And so by default, you can see here, we're downloading some box. Also by default, it's not listed here because we didn't really want to list it here. It sets it to 1 media per game, if that makes sense. Basically, you aren't going to get 12 box front images. You will get 1, even if 12 exist on the games database. Hopefully that makes sense. And that will be... Anyway, so I will get 1 main image, which is classified as one of these, 1 clear logo, 1 background image, and 1 screenshot, which it will grab a gameplay screenshot by default. So that could be changed. If you want to complete your 3D models, you would definitely want a back and a spine. Box full is actually not really a type. It is a type in LaunchBox, but not on the games database. And not recommended to use. You'll get weird results, but you can manually improve it if you really want to go that route. But there's really not really a benefit to use box full over a front, back, and spine. Box full is there because there were images on the internet that exist, like full packs of images that existed that has a box full. So we're like, well, we'll add it into LaunchBox, and this is how it's going to work. But we're not really going to know where the front of the box ends, where the spine begins, where the spine ends, and where the back begins and where the back ends, right? We don't know. Like there's no logical way for us to know. There's some ways, but not really that many ways. And so you'd have to tell us for each platform how it works, and all of your images would have to be exactly the same, like to the pixel. The front would have to begin here and end here at this pixel. The spine would have to begin here and end here at this pixel, right? If you're going to apply it to everything in a specific platform, the images have to be exactly the same with each other. So it's not ideal. Where with the individual images, we basically say, hey, here's the size of the box front. Let's use that as the size of, you know, the width and height of the actual model. And then, oh, you have a spine. Let's use that as the depth of the model. And then let's take the back and make the back the same size as the front. And there we've got your box. So much easier to create the model like that. Anyway, just for, I don't even know how long it's going to take me to download this media. Even with this default, it's going to have to download 4 images per game, and I just imported like thousands of games. The game's database. Do I recommend signing into the game's database? I 100% do. You'll read here some of the benefits for doing so, and I would definitely read through it and find out whether any of this stuff makes sense for you. For example, if you want to take part in high score leaderboards for arcade games, or if you want to take part in moving your statistics data over, like playtime and your progress ratings, favorites, and star ratings, and all that stuff between your builds. If you have multiple builds, that would make sense. In this case, I do want to show off the high score leaderboard, so I am going to type in my email. Figure out the best way to get this for myself. Here it is. And give me 1 second. Oh. Password 1234, that's right. And that's what you'll see when you're successful. LaunchBox High Score Leaderboards. If I wanted to sign into LaunchBox High Score Leaderboards, I would simply click this button and we're done. If I wanted to sign into Retro Achievements, which let's show it off. If I click this button, oh, now it's asking for a username, password, and API key. Why is it asking for all 3? Well, the username and password is used for we have the ability to send your RetroArch token, your information, to emulators to automatically sign you into those emulators. And we need the password to send to their API to grab the token. The token is what we then send to the emulators. The API key is what is used to grab your achievement information to display inside of LaunchBox. So all 3 are needed. They're just needed for different reasons. And so I'll take this off screen. And I will sign in. Once you have all 3 in there, there's a test button. The test button is going to ping the API and be like, yeah, you're good. And then that test button turns into just like an OK button or something like that. And then you press that and you're good to go. I am going to find my information for this very quickly. And I will type out my password, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, password 1, 2, 3, 4, and grab this API key. And we are good to go. You can press the show info button. You can see more of what's going on here. Tells you what it is, how does it work, and why it might be useful for you. If you have a license already and want to apply it, you can do it here. However, what is the benefit of the license? I want to be clear that if you're brand new to LaunchBox, you don't need a license. I mean, you might want to pick up one now because it's on a discount and it won't go on discount for a while. But at any other given moment, if you're just trying to figure out what LaunchBox is free for the majority of almost all the features. You really want to buy that premium if you have a very specific use case that you want to use or you want to support us, because that does help us greatly to support us to keep going and making this program as best as it can be. But for the most part, if you wanted to try LaunchBox or even use it, LaunchBox itself is almost completely free. None of the major features are locked behind any kind of paywall. And even if you wanted to use Big Box, that now has an unlimited free trial. So you don't have to buy the premium to test out Big Box. You can simply open Big Box and try it out. You are limited. Big Box is limited in that you have only 30-minute sessions, but if that session runs out, open it up again. You get another 30-minute session. If you cannot launch games, you cannot download themes. But outside of that, Big Box is there for you to try out completely. So let's go with a free. Let's say I don't have a license. For now, let's move on. It's going to give you a summary of everything that you just did. You chose to import 3,227 games from 11 platforms. I've logged into one storefront and importing from 5 of them. I chose to download 21 different types of media. I'm glad that I've got the media limit to 1. I don't want 21 images per game. I've successfully logged into the game's database account. I've enabled 2 extra features, and I've skipped premium. Android is more limited. The Android is completely different in that all features are available on Android. There is no feature lock. So PC has some feature lock, but no game lock. Android has no feature lock, but game limit, which I believe it's 100 games, not including your Android games. Which might be enough for a bunch of people on Android. Android, if you just have a little handheld, like imagine having 100 of your favorite retro console games or whatever. And then you've got every single feature that Android provides. So even Android is even more so. You can experience 100% of Android without needing to buy anything. And if you like it and you're like, I need to play more than 100 games right now, then you can you can get yourself a license. Ryan's Angels, welcome in. I hope you're doing well and that you're enjoying the celebration. We are about to open LaunchBox for the very first time after running through this welcome wizard. Let's take a look. Now, what is going on behind the scenes? Well, we just set a whole bunch of settings. And now we have to basically say, okay, data folder, here's everything that the user just selected. Save that out. Here's all the games that they wanted to import. Let's import them. It's importing them right now into your library. Which is why, if you can read it, it says importing games right there. I imported about 3,227 games. I don't know why I said about. That was exactly how many games that I imported. I don't think that takes into consideration combining games. So if I have 2 games that are the same game, but different versions of the game, it will combine them down. So I might end up with less games in the end. Orion, thank you so much. LaunchBox is a game changer for front ends. I personally think so myself. I have been a fan of LaunchBox ever since 2016, and only joined the team sometime in either 2020 or 2021, which does mean it's been a number of years now, and I've been happy since then. And Dr. Phobos, will Google locking down side loading in 2027 affect LaunchBox for Android? I mean, we're just hearing that right now, right? But as far as I know, it will not. In the sense that all developers have to do is basically tell Google, hey, we exist, and this is our APK. That's the part that's a little iffy, right? The validation step. Like when you see in articles and you see in like the news and what they announce, like, well, it will still work, you just have to validate yourself. But like, what is that process? We don't know. Maybe we can look into it. Maybe it exists, maybe it doesn't exist yet. Maybe they just announced it. What I assume it will be is some sort of Google form, not to be mistaken with the feature Google Forms on your cloud, Google Cloud, but like a form for Google devs that we fill out that basically says, this is who we are, this is our app. And then it probably will be okay to sideload. It will also only affect devices that are Google validated or something. Like, it's not going to affect all devices. So there's some questions there, but whatever we got to do, we'll do it. I will get to the secret code in a little bit, maybe in 10 minutes. How about that? 10 minutes, I will put the secret code right there, and then people can put that into the giveaway if that's why you're here, which I'm fine with. Anyway, what just happened? We closed. So basically what happened was we closed the welcome wizard. It imported the games. By the time you saw LaunchBox, you saw that your games were there. However, what it skipped was the metadata stage, so gathering metadata for your games and downloading media. And so was a choice that we had to make. Let's try to get people into LaunchBox as quickly as possible with their games already there. But the metadata won't be assigned. So usually you don't really see this step in other imports because it kind of happens in tandem with the actual import. But it's essentially gathering all the metadata information for every single one of your games. It's going to apply it to all of your games. Then you'll see it go again, and it'll start downloading the media for all of your games. And so what does that mean? What do I have? I've got MS-DOS, ScumVM, Windows. The Windows is the storefront stuff. Here's all of my storefront games. Now let's think about this. I only imported, what was it, GOG, and any install games that I have from some of the other storefronts. And I got 341 games. Definitely haven't played 341 games. I'm just glad I didn't do all of my storefronts. I think that would be closer to 2,000 or 3,000. I have a lot of games on those storefronts. Anyway, while that's happening, one thing that you did notice is that there was no part in the steps that I just took that deal with emulators, which now happens in the workflow after you import the games. And I guess I can show you what that looks like. So let's say I wanted to play one of these platforms. Which platform should I choose? I've got Jaguar CD, Xbox, the NES, the SNES. You're really gonna make it? I just said all of the cool platforms and you chose CDI? You're really gonna make me do this? Well, the good news is that I don't have that many CDI games. Yeah, thanks Game Noob. Make people watch the CDI. Let's choose one of these games. I guess we're going to choose either between Link, the Faces of Evil, Zelda, the Wand of Gamelon, or Zelda's Adventure. Because that is why a lot of people get the CDI, is to experience these wonderful games. Hotel Mario is right here. You had to point that out, huh? Couldn't just like ignore the fact that it was in the list. Fine, Hotel Mario. Fine. Okay. I press the play button. It goes, hey, you're playing this Philips CDI. You can play that through RetroArch. You want us to download RetroArch for you? You hit yes. It's going to download. It's going to download RetroArch, and it's going to download all of the cores for that version of RetroArch, and it's going to assign a whole bunch of platforms that we have in our database and their corresponding core that we recommend. But that can always be changed. So just like a bunch of defaults that could be added to, deleted, modified, all the good stuff. Did you see zombie dinos from Planet Zeltoid in my list of games that currently have nothing in there? I don't see it. Okay, or you can decide to manually add your own emulator. So maybe you already have RetroArch set up. Maybe you already have... Oh, demo. Diablo. Let's find out. Philips CDI is a platform that does need a BIOS. So you're going to see what our dependency file system look like, and I'll explain it to you as we go through it. But essentially the answer is yes and no. It is not legal for LaunchBox to give you BIOS files, but what we can do is direct you specifically towards getting your own BIOS files that you own. So we can be like an instruction manual inside of LaunchBox and basically say, hey, this platform, we understand the emulator is requiring a BIOS file. Do you want to add it? This is the BIOS file that's saying that it's required. Here's one that says maybe it's not required, but it's just like an extra file that might help the emulator. Like, we've got that all organized out, and then we give you the ability to browse to that file, and then we will place it where the file needs to go for that emulator to function. Right, Orion? LaunchBox was chore. What is like the biggest horror story that you remember from like long time ago setting up LaunchBox, you couldn't even select a core in RetroArch before. When I started using LaunchBox, it was not a thing. You had to type out the command line interface, which I think was like -L, and then you had to like point to the core. You type out the name of the core, type out the like file path to the core. like that. That's how we did it before. That's just a small example of the differences of how LaunchBox has evolved over time. I mean, you still have, it's good to know that all that stuff still exists somewhere, because there are reasons why you might want to put in some command lines, very specific. The one that sticks out in my head is if you wanted to set up playing the Super Game Boy with your Game Boy games. I think we have an entire tutorial on it, which still should be relevant. That's what you would need to dive into the dive into the code to get that all working. And you got an old version to use on a really old laptop, and you've recently experienced that. Yeah. It did work. I mean, that's why we were there. And even at the time we were saying, this is like the best user experience that we have for these launchers. Some emulators require time to set up more than others. That is 100% true. And we've tried our best to get the biggest amount of emulators, like the core foundation of emulators that you probably want, to be as simple as possible. And then all the outliers, make them all still possible to be brought into LaunchBox in as easy of a way as we can. MMO gaming, you bought LaunchBox because you wanted something that just was super simple. I'm glad that's essentially what we're going for. Something that is as super easy to use as possible. The MS-DOS version that was done for fun? Which one do you mean by that? Anyway, we're sitting on this screen. Let's make RetroArch download itself. So I'm gonna click that. It's gonna stop downloading media. It's gonna start downloading RetroArch and the cores. It's gonna place it inside of the LaunchBox emulators RetroArch folder. And then inside of LaunchBox, it's gonna set up a RetroArch emulator automatically for you to peruse and link those games to link the emulator to all of these games. Yeah, and I would say this, we're not done. There's been a lot of cleanup, right? LaunchBox is an old application, so we've kind of had to like shoehorn, wedge in some of the simplification that we have done over the years to fit into LaunchBox as it currently is. It's not 100% the way and as simple as we want it to be, but eventually we will get there. Anyway, so it's done. So what happens if I press the button? Now I want to play. Wait, it's telling me that I need some dependency files. It says heads up, there are missing dependency files that may may be required to play this game. All right, let's verify these dependency files. So you can see here, it brought me directly to the edit emulator window of RetroArch. It went to the dependency file section and it chose the Philips CDI platform, which it's telling me is using the same CDI core. And it's saying that core is telling you that this file is required. How do you know? Because this means that this exclamation mark means that this file is required. Sometimes you'll see that there are groups of files and it's like clearly inside of a group, and it's basically telling you one of those grouped files is required, not all of them. I don't know if there's one in this mess that's telling you that. Yeah, here. So like Sony PlayStation, you can see here that this is in a group here, and this whole group is saying, if I mouse over this emulator as indicated, this group is required, and it's saying one of the following items is required, not all of them. But if you wanted to play Japan, EU, or US, depending on which one you like better, you would only need to choose one of them. You could choose all of them if you really wanted to, if you wanted to be a completionist. And then these ones aren't even really required. They're basically extras that you could potentially use. Anyway, back to... Right, and what's actually telling us that is the core in question inside of LaunchBox, inside of RetroArch. This core has determined that this is required. So if you switch cores, these requirements might change. Philips CDI. Okay, so I need CDI Mono 1. What I find that people tend to get confused by is that there's a lot of old or corrupt or just CD Mono 1 files out there that are not the correct one. And so if you choose one that's not the correct one, we will tell you that. How? Well, let's set up that scenario. So imagine that this is some CD Mono 1 file that you download from the internet. CDI mono1.zip. And you're pretty confident that that's the correct file. So you select it. Oh. If we had MD5 hash data, which apparently we don't for this platform, it would give you a yellow light that basically says, hey, that's the correct file, but the hash that we have on file for this is not the one that you just imported. Now, as you can see, we don't have hashes for every single one of these files. And the emulator itself would have had to have given it to us. And apparently, this one did not. Anyway, so let's forget about that file, and let's go to the real file. Here's a trick that I'm not sure if all of you guys know of. Do you have a MAME full set? Well, a MAME full set includes the correct CDI Mono 1 BIOS file. You might already have the file and not even realize it. Alright, so we got it now. Let's hope that my experiment of importing the incorrect file didn't break the system, and press play. There you go. It did not. And you can see through all the RetroArch notifications that just popped up that it's signed. I'm also signed into Retro Achievements because I inputted my data inside of the welcome wizard. Anyway, from this, if anybody is curious, I believe you have to click, the OK button. Gecko, happy anniversary. Thank you so much. I'm glad you can join us. Orion, you're saying FM Town's Marty games are easy to add to LaunchBox now? That's cool. I always loved the amazing music of like those old LucasArts games. Those are always my favorite. And I remember back in the day, like, learning about the FM Towns Marty versions of those games. And be like, wow, this music's so good.
Nice of the princess to invite us over for a picnic, eh, Luigi? I hope she made lots of spaghetti. Luigi, look! It's from Bowser. Dear pesky plumbers, the Koopalings and I have taken over the Mushroom Kingdom. The princess is now a permanent guest at one of my 7 Koopa hotels. I dare you to find her if you can. We gotta find the princess. And you gotta help us. If you need instructions on how to get through the
we gotta help
hotels,
them.
check out the enclosed instruction book.
Isn't this wonderful? Thank you so much, everybody, for choosing this game.
Looks kind of peaceful. Looks at the deceiving when Koopas are involved.
Oh.
Wood door hysteria. I can almost barely read that. It's on my screen. I can actually read it better in the Twitch stream. That's interesting. Oh, is it me or is it only coming out of? it's only coming out of my left ear. Anyway, there we go. Jump. Ooh, oh my god. My right ear is the sound effects. Anyway, the goal is to close all the doors, if I remember correctly, with this button. Oh, I can reopen them. Can I do it? Whoops. Look at that. Well, he's got a little dance and everything. Wonderful. Wonderful Mario game. We could have chosen any Mario game, and you guys chose this one. Alright, and that's how that works. So that's the whole importing games. And you can see I'm playing the games and I'm still downloading media. So I come back here and now our games have, at least most of them, except this one, has a box front image. Okay, so I did say that I was going to show you guys the special code, so I might as well do that now. I, for some reason, now see 2 different secret codes, and we're just going to... Okay, I think it's this one. Hope that I give you guys the right secret code. Let's do this. All right, so right here, you're about to see a secret code. There you go. Type that into the giveaway. If anybody has any questions while people are out and about doing that, let me know. If you've already inputted the secret code and you have any questions about any of this process, you can see here that ScumVM linked the folder. So for example, Space Quest series, which I love. Not sure why there's some other files that shouldn't be there. I probably should have looked into my ScumVM folder. It's probably a mess. Oh, interesting. It imported my ScumVM files, which, yeah, I probably did create them for testing purposes. the code is for the celebration giveaway. So if you go to www.launchboxapp.com/celebrate, or just go to our website, you probably find a link to the celebration page. Scroll down to the giveaway section. You can sign up for a giveaway to win all sorts of fun stuff. Code has been accepted. Awesome. And I didn't make a mistake. Did we? I'm sure you're one Google search away from finding that out, Focus. Lost Toast? It depends. I believe for any hardware, there's just one to give away. Steam keys and LaunchBox licenses, many. If that makes sense. Yeah, I tried to be clever with these codes, and you're just like, no, it's this. This is what you did. You screwed up. Back to LaunchBox. Okay. Some of these games are not. I would do Scum VM, although for some reason I kind of messed up my Scum VM folder, and I'm realizing why I did it. Anyway, let's go with Sony PlayStation 2. How does this work? It works in the same way. Some people, or some games, platforms, don't run through RetroArch the best. This is one of them. And so if I wanted to play, please pick a good game, guys. I probably won't play this game, but what is your favorite PlayStation 2 game? Oh, Orion, I read that completely different than what you typed out. I'm gonna scroll up. How about now, Focus? What's your favorite game? Let's see what I got. Let's see what I got. I'm seeing a lot of SSX. I've got 3 of them. So I guess the first one that came in was SSX Tricky. Let's do it. Oh, it's going to tell me that I need PCSX2, which is the recommended way to play PlayStation 2 games. Even today, I'm going to press yes. It's going to download PCSX2. It's actually quite small. It's going to create an emulator. It's going to open up a first-time setup process. What do you have to do here? Well, you could follow this process or you don't have to. It's here. Let's follow the process. It's asking for BIOS files. And so you can open to this folder and kind of just drop it in here. Let's do that. So I'm going to assume that I have these files somewhere here. I've got a file. That should be enough, right? And then you can refresh the list and it's like, oh, you've got this file from the US firmware. Great. And then I don't need to do this. I'm not going to do that. I probably should do this if I want to have my controller to work, I think. That's all I had to do was choose the SDL X input controller, which I have right in my hand right here. And I'm going to press next and finish. Okay, we're done. So now that we have set up an emulator, a PCSX2, it is linked inside of LaunchBox if you wanted. You go to Tools, Manage Emulators. Here's where you're going to see all the behind the hood stuff that all of us old folks had to actually go into back in the day and set up individual things. You can see that both of them, we know what versions that it's on. And this is basically saying, hey, you're on the most up-to-date version. If you weren't, it would show you a cloud download icon, and you would have an update button right here that's not grayed out. You can see that we automatically filled in command line parameters, checked off the things that need to be checked, which was nothing here. These command line parameters will make it go to full screen and not display any of their UI, basically. You can alter this in any way that you want. You can see that we automatically assigned Sony PlayStation 2 as the default emulator here. Dependency files, you can see that there is a lot of PlayStation 2 dependency files, and there's not really enough name. You can see I got this one. You could have grabbed any of the other ones because, as LaunchBox is telling me, they are all in one giant group where only one of the following items is required. Does this one have... you can see. So like this file, here's a trick that I didn't show because I haven't been in a position where I needed to show it. If you didn't have a file and you're like, I want to grab this NTSC Japanese firmware, it says click here to copy the correct MD5 hash to a clipboard. And I kind of wonder what would happen if you pasted the MD5 hash into Google. I'll let you guys think about that for a second. Okay, I think that we are good. Remember, everything that I did here so far is all on the free version of LaunchBox. Let's do it. Guess what? I've got multiple screens. And decide to open up on one of my other screens. Do I do I try to find out where that setting is if they have one? Anybody know if they have that setting? I don't think I've ever seen that setting inside of but I would actually recommend, I'm not going to do it, but I would actually recommend going into these emulators settings and altering things to the way that you like. Maybe you want resolution to be higher, something like that. RetroSci, it's a wild Faeran. Yeah, we are here and we're celebrating the LaunchBox celebration. We're celebrating 12 years of LaunchBox, and we're building a LaunchBox build for you guys right here from scratch. Is there a PCSX2 option that determines which monitor that a game would open on if you had multiple monitors? I know where that setting is in RetroArch, in MAME. I don't think I've ever had to use that setting in PCSX2. I mean, it's usually pretty good about it. Okay. Try to make it a window. Do old school dragon. please remember thinking about that, I wonder if new versions of PCSX2 has the command line batch. Let's find out. Well, it's still opened on the wrong monitor. That didn't work. But instead of messing with this, I'm sure we can force it on this monitor. You don't think that PCSX2 has that setting. Interesting. I think if I change that, but obviously I did not. I've got this weird setup here, right? This is the monitor that everybody's seeing. It's showing up on this monitor because I guess it's number one. But it's number one on the Windows setting, which is not the same as what NVIDIA will say that it is, which is not the same as what the internals of Windows will say that it is, which is always what's the most confusing thing ever. I think that's the first time it's ever did that, though. That's interesting. Anyway, that's Sony PlayStation 2. It's there. It's working. That's essentially what you guys have to do to set up that platform. I've got some surprises in the works, but let's first talk about some of like the weird ones. Let's talk about Sony PlayStation Vita. We recently did a video about it, so you guys might know how it works, but the way that it essentially works is that Sony PlayStation Vita mimics a Vita in that it even mimics the internal hard drive of a Vita. I'm not going to do N-Gage. As much as you say. I already had to do CDI. Let's talk about the Vita. The Vita mimics an internal hard drive of a Vita. And the way that that worked is that you had to install games onto the Vita. No, we're doing Vita, which means you first have to download Vita 3K, then you have to install games onto the Vita 3K, and it goes kind of hides inside of their internal folder system, and that's where your games are going to be. You can determine where that internal drive is. So if you needed that kind of functionality, you could do that. But you can't just like have a Vita 3K file and say, play this game. That's just not how it is. Well, last I checked, Orion, yeah, it still has a way to go. But I mean, we're at the point where I think they broke, 1,000, over 1,000 games that are basically playable. I feel like that's enough to say that they're doing pretty good. Pretty good considering that it was not an emulatable system like even a few years ago. Same with Xbox. Xbox, everybody was talking about which emulator a few years ago? CXBX Reloaded or something? And I'm sitting there like, this Zemu or XEMU emulator is really gaining traction. And at the time, everybody's games were in a state that worked for that other emulator. And it wasn't the same as the games that you needed for that emulator. So people were very confused for a little while on how to even get XEMU to get set up. Or is it XMU? But I think we're past that at this point, right? It became the emulator in question. that has far superior compatibility in a much shorter amount of time. And it's also the way that you have to do it. So Vita 3K. I'm going to do something. I'm going to try something out, guys, that should be out soon. What do I got here? I'm going to try this for you guys and show off a potential new feature that's not out yet, so that this video kind of remains relevant. I will have to restart this. One way you could tell whether LaunchBox is shut down properly is that these folders, Symlink folders, are there when LaunchBox is running and not there when LaunchBox is not running. Which means I'm guessing it's got to do a lot of cleanup on these data folders. We did pretty good so far. We don't have any playlists yet. That's something we should probably do eventually. I'm going to do a couple more emulators, I think, for you. So if you have a specific emulator where you're like I wish I knew how to get that up and working, at the very least I can explain how, even if I don't have games for it. Otogi 1 and 2, they finally got that playing. That's really cool. I'm glad that it's still going. You really want to know how the N gauge works? That emulator is just Anyway, you can see that I'm gonna have wait a second. No, that shouldn't be the problem. The N gauge is quite a pain. You are right about that. Ryan, you're playing Myst 4 Revelation. All right. Let's do this Vita 3K thing, and let's can we speedrun it? What you'll notice right now is that in the future, we have a Vita 3K plugin coming that is going to download Vita 3K for you. And this is sort of how it's going to work. You click the button, it downloads Vita 3K, then it brings up a prompt, and the prompt says, hey, you have to do all of this stuff before Vita 3K will work. It's quite an extensive list of stuff, so let's do it. It then opens Vita 3K and starts the startup section that requires you to do all of this stuff. Hey, do you want the emulator path? I would 100% recommend that this path be wherever your Vita 3K emulator is. It wants you to download and then install a whole bunch of firmware. Luckily, there's a bunch of buttons that tell you where to get it. I feel like I downloaded it. Let's find out. Okay, I got them. If not, you can click on the buttons and download them. See, when you do that, V means that it's installed, X means it's not installed. Once you have installed all three of these firmwares from the Sony website, I feel like N-Gage would require, I don't know how much time we want to focus on it, requires its own like setup video in its entirety. All right, we're done. The second step is that we need some games, right? I guess I should create a user. And now we've got a Vita 3K. We need some games, don't we? Right? So let me try to find out where they are here. The games do come in a few different varieties, and they're imported differently depending on the variety of the Vita game that you have. Got a really annoying type that I kind of want to get rid of. Let's just import this game. Oops, I guess I got to do it this way. What do I even have? I don't know. A PKG. I think I have this file. Then it literally installs the game onto its internal hard drive system, which we placed inside of the emulator folder. Yeah, I feel like there's a way that you could bypass all that stuff to get Windows 11, but yeah, they're not just bothering users. They want developers to get all up on that. That's how it is. Okay, so we got one game, so that's good enough. Let's stop that. We'll press OK. Remember, Vita 3K plugin integration will come to LaunchBox, and this is how it's going to be. You hit the download button, you go through that steps, and that's it. It should input all of the right commands and everything in there that you need. It will tell you what version you're on. It will tell you the status, if there's a new version. All that stuff is part of the emulator plugin, and we can expand that support without requiring a LaunchBox update through plugins, basically. And anyone can create these plugins, by the way. We do need to do a little bit of a better job to have documentation on how to do it. But even if you knew how, you probably still have to know how we can tell you how the system runs so that you can understand, but you still have to know how to code to get it to work. All right, so there we go. I think Vita 3K is in there. Let's do a quick restart. . . . We might as well do some of the easier ones too. While we're in the middle of it, let's import with the multiple platform importer Sony PSP. I mean, we might as well round out that stat, right? This is more of a manual multiple platform importer thing, so you can set your own media that you want to download for this. This Movies thing is here if you want to download anything from that. I think their free service provides some images. Paid service provides videos, manuals, all that stuff. While I'm in the middle of this one, notice that since I have automatic ROM import as a thing that's turned on by default, and I added Sony the Vita 3K emulator, LaunchBox recognized that I had the emulator in there, did its whole bunch of scanning behind the scenes without letting you know, found the game that I imported into Sony PlayStation Vita, and then imported the platform. And there it is. And now, since I'm at the end of this wizard, let's manually import some PSP games as well. There you go. You can see that the Persona 4 Golden game that I imported is there. And I can play it right now. I should be able to play it no problem. It's got the link, which, since it's not a file, we like grab the right game ID, we send it towards the emulator, and then we play it. Whether you can see it or not on the stream, that's another question. At least I can see it. And you can hear it. Yeah. It probably went into exclusive full screen mode. And OBS goes, I don't know what to do with that. Well, how about Sony PSP? I feel like by default, it'll just play. Why? Because it's by default supposed to use the PPSSPP core in RetroArch. And you can see it works. It works fine. If you're like, I don't want to use that, I want to use the actual PPSSPP, well, here's how you change that. You go to Manage Emulators, you add the PPSSPP emulator, and wait. There's now a download button. This will come in a future PPSSPP plugin that currently is not public. You would click that button. It downloads PPSSPP. I go to Sony PSP in the associated platforms and say, I want this to now be my default emulator. You don't have to do this step, but if you want it to be the default, I guess you do have to do this step. You could not make it the default and have it as an option. That works as well. It's confirming that I want to do this. I say yes. The new plugin will tell me which version that I'm on and provide updates. It will also keep track of retro achievements. So PPSSPP has the ability to have retro achievement support. LaunchBox will automatically, by default, log in using your retro achievement credentials that you gave me earlier, or that you gave LaunchBox earlier in the welcome wizard. If you missed that step, I should say, you can always go into, I believe it's somewhere here actually, achievements, and then click here. It'll say connect to retro achievements. So you can click there at any time to log back in or to log into retro achievements. Now, what do these options mean? What if an emulator has retro achievement support and we have a plugin, an integrated plugin that supports retro achievements for that emulator? You'll get these three options. This option is basically on game launch, we will inject your retro achievement username and token during that launch. So if you weren't logged in, like here, it's basically scanned and said, well, you're not currently logged in to this emulator, but we will log you in during launch. But if you're like, I don't want you to like log in during launch, you can uncheck that, and you can do it right now. So I can click there and say, hey, now you're logged in. We just injected your username and token into PPSSPP. You're good to go. And now it won't do it during login. You can clear the settings and have it happen during login, and this will control whether you're in hardcore or softcore mode. So if you, let's say I did that and then I changed this setting, it's going to be like, wait a second, the emulator settings are different from what you just set up in LaunchBox. You're telling LaunchBox you want to be in softcore mode, but the emulator says you're in hardcore mode. Like, what do you want to do here? And you're like, well, I kind of want to be in softcore mode. Update my setting. Now we're good. But hey, I want to be in hardcore mode. So even if I don't click update settings here, as long as I have launch login on game launch set up and enable hardcore mode is on, the next time I launch a game that has achievements support, which this game does, I will be in. So RA integration is enabled and I'm in hardcore mode, is what it says there. So we sent during that launch that we want to be in hardcore mode and then launch the game. Hey, at least you can see this one. And that's PPSSPP. A couple other things that you'll note is that there are two default command line parameters by default. One of them puts it full screen, and the second one makes it so that their pause menu exits. The exit button in their pause menu exits the emulator, which by default it doesn't. It brings you back into the PPSSP menu. So having this definitely helps. Yeah, Final Fantasy VII is still one of those memories burned into my head. Not this particular game, but the one on the original PlayStation. Final Fantasy VII is like ingrained into my head as I was playing it through high school, skipping classes to just play that game. It was just so memorable. And you got to remember, at that time, everyone was like coming from, the SNES Genesis era. It's like it was such a huge leap at the time, the huge leap that you don't see these days. And I think that's what made it more memorable. That, oh, you got these small little tiny games. Oh my god, look at this game. That's like super large and just incredible in scope and just so deep. And just done so incredibly well. And I guess that's why it still endures today. And why they remade it into... I guess they remaking it into 3 games. Really milking that. Alright, one other thing that I want to touch on is pause menus. I don't know how many people... this will be the first premium thing that we talk about. Alright, so if you wanted to upgrade to premium, let's say at this point you're like, hey, I can play the games, I can download the emulators, I can import the games, I can download media, I can play all the games that I want, all in one place. You know, I want to basically say thanks or unlock these features like pause screens and startup screens and all that stuff. And you buy a license, which we'd be very grateful for. You can apply it by clicking on this free button, pressing the browse, getting to your license. You'll get a license in your email. It's attached to your email, license.xml file. You would download that attachment. It'll be just a file. And you apply it like that. I'm like, hey, there's my license. And that's it. Well, focus. If you have somebody telling you that it's the best game in the world, I could see why that would be annoying. Anyway, we are now in the premium version of LaunchBox. And so what I wanted to show, actually a couple things. A game could have a manual. So like, let's say I went to, I don't even have the platform imported because nobody chose this platform. So I'm going to import it now. I'm going to again use the multiple import wizard to do this, even though it makes no sense. But the workflow is better doing it this way. I'm going to import the GameCube. And just for time, I'm only going to download... whatever. Let's just download it all. You were sports game kids. I did play quite a bit of sports games growing up. Like NHL 94. I feel like if they had a hockey game on PC, I'd probably be playing that as well. That's an interesting question. First ever RPG played ever. I don't even know if I can answer that. I had to guess though, it's probably one of those silver box games. Is that what they were called? Was it a gold box? I think it was a gold box game. I think my first game ever was Eye of the Beholder on the PC. Yeah. Dungeons and Dragons Gold Box games. I have the Beholder. I feel like that was the first RPG that I ever played. That was my introduction. And it wasn't like a huge leap. Because I was very big in adventure games. Huge adventure game fan. So this is just like the next step, I guess. The next nerdy step in my video game adventure. Alright, so why did I import Nintendo GameCube and get it to download like thousands of images? Let's look at Zelda. Maybe I just want to focus on this one game and say, hey, oh, it's about to download the box of this game. There it goes. You can see in this media section, there's a place that you can manually set a manual. There's a place to set music. You can hit this button, and if you had an Emmy Movies account, which I do somewhere. You can get it to download it for you automatically. Or you can download it from somewhere and assign it to the game. But the reason why I really want to show this off is because of the menu, the pause menu, which a lot of people I don't think fully are aware, has complete support for manuals and additional documents. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Okay, let's download a video for it and a manual. And there it sets the manual path automatically, places it in the correct folder path, manuals, Nintendo GameCube, and then calls it after the game title. Well, there it is. Here, if I went to media, I could view the manual. Which is right here. It's also in this theme right here, manual. And I can click that link. And that also brings up the manual. You can tell that in Adobe, I have it set to remember my position. So if I closed on this position and reopened, Adobe will be like, well, I know this file. You were on page 5. That's just an Adobe feature. And if I wanted to, let's say, assign something else, an additional document, maybe you have a strategy guide. And so you go to the additional apps, you add an application, you go, this is a strategy guide. And then you point it to your strategy guide. Let me see. Maybe I have one here. There it is. So strategy guide. Press OK. Now if I go to media, there's an additional document section with a strategy guide. Prima's official strategy guide. Anybody still have any of these Prima's official strategy guide things in their collection? I think I have not this game, but probably Twilight Princess. I think I have Twilight Princess somewhere in a closet. Game Noob, you got one right next to you. Which one do you have? I remember that the Twilight Princess strategy guide was all like silvery and potentially had a hologram on it. Maybe it was just very shiny. The Lord of the Rings, the Third Age. That's a good one. Also, the strategy guide will appear here in the theme as well. If you stretched this out, this theme will just keep stretching out to like there if you want it to. You see that it actually appears right here. Okay, and I can reopen it and it remembers the page. This one's probably more good that it remembers the page. Anybody know of like a really good full screen PDF application for these kind of magazines? more of just like a player. Something that's really good with a controller. I've looked into a whole bunch and each one has something that I don't like about it. Yeah, Ryan, the Wii U version. Yeah, that one's really cool, good too. For some reason, the GameCube version has a place in my heart because it is literally the game that made me buy a GameCube back in the day, and I got like that special silver GameCube, limited edition silver GameCube, which I still have somewhere, and I remember thinking like, why do I want a GameCube? There's nothing on the GameCube that I want to play. And then when this game came out, and I don't remember what I was doing at the time, I just remember thinking like, well, now I have to buy a GameCube. Like, I need to play this game. And so I bought it just for this game, played it, and absolutely loved it. I have tried Vita, and I liked it and didn't like it. Does that make sense, Kuma? Although I was trying it out as an ebook reader more than for this purpose. And I know that it has really good support for like animes and that sort of thing. So I was thinking about trying it again. That's another problem that I have. Like, I want something like Vita, but amazing for just books in general, like an ebook reader. But I have to have it have an absolute black mode, and there's like very specific things that I need. I need like to be able to control the line spacing between the font or the text, the rows, and then I want to be able to like scroll it like a book. I don't want to like have to read a book like a website. I don't know why that bothers me a lot. I believe Vita has all the features that I want now for that, I think. If I remember, when I tried it out, it did not have all of those features. So I might have to relook into that. Sumatra. I don't think I've looked into that one before. Does that one have like a full screen controller based feature? One of these days we'll find one. Basically, it would be nice if, you know, for these strategy guides and stuff, I can like utilize a controller specific thing with all the features that you would expect to make that strategy guide a better experience. Alright, so now that that's there, let's take a look. Did I even enable pause screens? I did not. Let's press this key to open it. Actually, you know what? Let's jump into Big Box. We haven't done that yet. Big Box opened on a different screen than Vita 3K. No, not Vita 3K. Than PCSX2 opened on. All right. A lot of pause themes, but pause themes are completely themable. I think I created this one, and I tend to like it. I could probably improve it a little bit. Alright, so let's take a look. So back in options, there is a pause thing that is there and working. I've got a keyboard mapping, which I will set there for now, just for easy use. And we will jump to Nintendo GameCube. Go to the one game that I have a video for, the Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. I guess I should have downloaded the emulator for this before I went into it. It's a Big Box. That would have been nice. And do like pause themes that show controller images? So what, I'm actually curious about that. What controller image are you expecting to see? And what controls are you expecting to see? Let's give an example. Let's say you are playing GameCube as an example here. Are you wanting to see the GameCube controller? Or are you wanting to see the controller that you personally have in your hand? So if you wanted to see the GameCube controller because of nostalgia or something, and you wanted controls to be on there, are you kind of like mapping, oh, this A button is actually my, B button or something. Like there's some like thing written on there. Or like which one are you wanting like the reverse, where it's like, okay, well my B button is actually the game's A button. Okay, there's that part. Or are you wanting to say this B button is actually jump in this game? Yeah, just show a random controller. Can you imagine? It's like, Atari 7800. Good luck. Okay. Alright, let's play a game. Avatar: The Last Airbender. Play. Again, Dolphin. It's telling me that I have to download Dolphin. Yes, please. Orion's Angels. You are half right. It's actually not full screen. It's windowed full screen. So technically it's both a window and full screen. That does not answer your question, but that's a pretty cool bit of knowledge. All right, so you really, ED, just want to go between the two. This A button is this button on my controller, and you got two button controllers that are up there. You don't want to know any context around that. Can you minimize it? Probably not. I feel like we could do it. You would have there would have to be a set of rules for Big Box. For example, you couldn't change the aspect ratio of it. You can't minimize Big Box, but you can have stuff over top of it pretty easily and have it go into the background without a problem. Like if it was an exclusive full screen mode, it would scream at you every time that you tried to like leave Big Box. I mean, I can show you that in practice, I guess, or you have Big Box, you can open it up and you can kind of see. Like, is there a benefit to have it minimized? Probably less so than I've seen people request. Like, I just want it in a window and I just want it like here on my screen. And that's it. And so we could do that. However, we'd probably need to include a new set of options that changes like the aspect ratio of it. So I want Big Box, but I want Big Box to be in a window, and I want that window to be 16 by 9. Or I want that window to be 4 by 3. Or I want that window to be, 9 by 16. Or I want that, like all that stuff, right? And we would be like forcing different perspectives. I could see that being really beneficial for theme developers. Although also not good for theme developers. I say overall probably positive for theme developers. They would have to understand theme development has a few different layers, and the really good ones can determine what Big Box would look like amongst many different aspect ratios all in one theme. The default theme that I made here is designed kind of to do that for the most part, most of the views. Yeah, but we couldn't do like freeform. Couldn't be like, okay, here's a window, just like this. We can be like, here's a window, okay, well, let's just make it like this size or this size. Like Big Box would not react to that because Big Box is designed to be one size, whatever that size is, and you want it to be that size because themes are made for those sizes. But like once the aspect ratio is locked, we could then allow you to like have it in a window and you can make it bigger or smaller. I haven't heard like you could see here, I could just be like, well here, but I kind of want to do whatever, something else at the moment. And you can see like, I can do something else. It's just there somewhere in the background. Basically like minimizing it. It's just there. You could treat it like a background. Anyway. What were we doing? We were about to launch this game. How are you doing, game? Okay, we're going to launch this game. We're going to press the pause key, which I hope I remembered to set that up. I did remember to set it up, right? You can see that even though I just downloaded Dolphin, it has already logged me into Retro Achievements in Dolphin. Due to our Retro Achievement integration support, Dolphin does have that. Oh, look at that. There's a pause menu now. I press my pause menu button. What do you notice? One, you notice that I can view the manual from here. The way that it works here is that we are using Chromium to view this PDF file and kind of hiding a lot of the stuff around it. So we're kind of limited to whatever Chromium allows, which it's okay. It has gamepad support for the most part, which is important. It has the ability to zoom in and out of these things, although I don't know if I have any of that stuff set up. There's mappings that you can set up for that stuff. There we go. Well. I can go back to the pause menu, and you can even see that the strategy guide will appear here as well. So any kind of additional document that you add will show up here. So I can open the strategy guide, jump to whatever section that I want. Yeah. It is quite a large strategy guide, I must say. This included the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time strategy guide in this strategy guide. It was like a 2-for-1. That's interesting. I did not realize that. Anyway, both are there. You can view achievements from here, which now it's saying there is no achievements. No, I'm pretty sure there's achievements for this game. And you can resume the game. I guess, Orion, it depends on the game that you're playing, right? Some games don't need a strategy guide. Other games kind of do. Some games need more than that. Like on my adventure game days, sometimes you might want a map, or like the manual for some of those games are very important to have. Well, the way that I added it gives you access to it in both LaunchBox and Big Box. Game movie. Yeah, imagine if they included the poster. I kind of wonder if they did. Maybe they did. All right, last two things that I want to do. But if anybody has any examples of what they want to see, let me know. I know that, for example, no one mentioned Commodore Amiga, but we did do a bunch of work at one point to make it so you can import WHD load versions of games very easily. And for people that don't know what I'm talking about, you're gonna have to do some research. But for people that do know what I'm talking about, that used to be quite a hard thing to import into LaunchBox due to the way that the file names are laid out. But that should just be part of the ROM import wizard. One thing that I want to do is import MAME. The MAME import wizard is different, and I can kind of explain what's happening while it's going on here so that you can get an idea. You can see that I clicked on Tools Import MAME Arcade Full Sets. You press Next. It's going to ask you for where your games are. I'm going to tell it. I would recommend a non-merge set if you don't have one. I guess I won't go into detail about what all of the different sets are, but you really don't want to go with a merge set. A lot of people go with that because it's the smallest set to buy into. But yeah, if you don't worry about space, non-merged, even if you worry about space, non-merged. because you can get, and I think there's a guy even on our video maybe, there's sort of a process that you can go through that will take a non-merged and make it smaller than a merge set, but you still have all of the games. Anyway, so what it did was it read the version number from the folder and it inputted it into this full set version. And what it actually did behind the scenes was it took the version number, it then went to the GitHub MAME, the MAME GitHub, and said, hey, what are all the versions that you have? Grabbed that list, created a list of that, then said, well, this guy has 261. And then took that 261 version and selected it by default. And now you can see here are all the versions that you can select. And the reason why choosing the correct version is what you want is because on the next screen it's going to download that version of MAME, and that's what you want. The reason why this process might not work for people, you have either 1, no internet, 2, you cannot access GitHub or GitHub's API at this time, or 3, you can't access GitHub's API in the exact way that we are trying to access GitHub's API. And if that happens, we will fail to get this list and you will not be able to download MAME. And you could do it manually. At this point, we've developed a process to bypass this. We were not expecting people to have problems doing that. If you do not have a problem doing that, which I think is most people, it will ask you that you can automatically install and configure MAME. You click on that. It is now downloading and installing MAME. And the reason why it has to do that is because it needs MAME to do the rest of this setup. And I will explain what that means. Yeah, and unlike what our video says, get a non-merge set. All right, enable LaunchBox high score leaderboards. I have that enabled already because of the welcome wizard. Press next. Don't worry about this. At one point we had multiple different places you get metadata, and that's why this screen exists. For time's sake, I'm not going to download any media for this, because I'm about to import a lot of games. Bezels is very good for arcade, so I do recommend getting bezels for the arcade platform. These are bezels from the Bezel project, and they will, we're giving you examples. Theme bezels look like this. System bezels look like that. And what this is saying is download theme bezels, but if it doesn't have a theme bezel, check to see if it has a system bezel and download that one instead. You can do the reverse of that, or you can say, no, just download theme bezels, you know, screw the system bezels. So that's why there's 4 options there. Next. Or skip all of that and just get, yeah, the Orion bezels. Although, do you make bezels for MAME, Orion? All right, the interesting spots. At one point, I think in 2021-ish, maybe 2022, we looked at our filter system and said, let's expand it. And so we went through all the things that we could do, and we created this expanded MAME filter system, essentially allowing you to import games in different methods. We didn't do everything, and I kind of wish that we did like a little bit more. Maybe in the future we could do a little bit more, because there's so much stuff that you can use. MAME is very, like, they have its problems, but it's very organized. Maybe too organized? Is that a thing? but there's a lot that you can filter on. And so what it did, or what we're about to see is we're going to say, hey, import clones as additional versions. So it's like import every single game. The way that MAME works is that you've got multiple versions of the same game. And yeah, they give them funny names like parents and clones. And there's a parent game and there's a clone game, and the parent's supposed to be like the first game that came out, or like the main game, whatever they determine on that. And then the clones are like everything that came out afterwards, or different versions of that parent game. Anyway, there's lots of different versions, and this option is basically saying just create one game inside of LaunchBox and just put all the versions in that game, and just allow you to choose which one. This one will just take the parent game, or at least the game that's North American region, and ignore all the other ones. Actually, this setting might ignore this region to prioritize setting. I don't know why you would ever want to do this, or just give me the parent game. Import all clones as separate, so it's basically you're gonna have many more thousands of different versions of the same games inside of LaunchBox just sitting there, like 20 versions of one game. So yeah, that's why this one's default. This one makes the most sense. Change your region to prioritize. All that will do is it'll just read the MAME file, find out a version of the game that's your region that you select, European or whatever, and if we can, we will set it to that region. This one's definitely important. Unless you have a 4-player cab, I'd recommend not setting it to 4 players, or unless you have 4 controllers and you're expecting to always play those 4 players. All it's doing is it's prioritizing 2-player versions, things like The Simpsons, things like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like the games that had 2 players, X-Men, 2-player and 4 players of the games of the same game. We're going to prioritize whatever version that you choose here. 2-player games tend to allow you to choose which player you want to play, versus the 4-player variants tend to just like lock players to a specific controller. And then you've got different game types. I do recommend keeping this default unless you have a very specific reason not to, and I would never uncheck games, skip games unplayable in MAME. How do we determine unplayable status in MAME? If you've ever been, here's a semi-easy way to find out. If you've ever been to a website called Arcade Italia, see if that still exists. It does. And you went to a game. I don't know. What's a good game? X-Men? Actually, here's a prime example. Here. Primal Rage. Here's a good example because Prim Rage. Wait, it's red. That means that this game, according to MAME, down here, overall, is not playable. However, if you go into their breakdown, emulation is good, graphics is good, color is good, sound is good, even cocktail mode is good, and protection is imperfect but kind of okay. I don't know why they still categorize this as not playable. This game will not import because MAME is telling us this game is not playable. And these statuses are different between different versions of MAME. So that's why it's very important to tell us which version of MAME that you have. Because that will determine which games we're importing, which ones we're not, based on the statuses of that version of MAME. Hey Ryan, thanks for stopping by. hopefully have a good rest of your week. Anyway, so there are certain games like that, but I'd recommend it is not a good idea to uncheck this and then find those games. It would be better to find those games elsewhere and import them manually. Anyway, controller support, you can filter out specific kinds of controllers, and we kind of just meshed together the ones that we thought were most useful for people. And then all of these playlists that you can create. I'm, for time, not going to create... let's create them. Let's just create them. Alright, so at this point, what it's doing is... it is using the version of MAME that it downloaded. It sent a command to MAME to generate a giant MAME file with all of the data points that we need. It basically has everything. Which game's playable, which one's not. The regions, the short names, the everything. And we use it to determine... we actually use that file to determine that, hey, you wanted to import only working games, you want to skip all of this stuff, and we scan the file to determine which games that you want to import, and we actually ignore your ROM folder, as an example. Barney, in fact, the settings that I chose was import all of the different versions. So yes, I actually am importing all the versions, but what I did tell it was, if I press the play button, make it the 2-player game. But if I'm going to just like look at all the versions, all of those different versions will be there, and I'll show you in a second after this is done. So about 2,800 games is going to be imported. And I guess it's going to go through the process of importing all 3,000 games. So we got some time, a few minutes here. But that's what it will do. I don't have a good example here until MAME is there, but you know the way, I don't know which game has more than one disc. One of these Final Fantasy games have to have more than one disc. Nope. Apparently not. PlayStation 2 had enough space. I'm picking the wrong games. Genre? Wait, I've got badge support. Let's turn that on. Yeah, the other versions will get listed as additional apps. There you go, first game. And what that means is I can right click and say, here, play the version, so it'll list like the 2-player, the 4-player stuff. But if I press just the play button, it's going to play that 2-player variant. Or 4-player, depending on which one you decided to prioritize. And same, the play button here has a little arrow, and that will determine which one you want to play there as well. And behind the scenes, what's actually happening is that if you edited a game and you go to additional apps, you'll see all of the versions listed here. And you could add manually more versions if you had them. You can swap the default one as well, because if you decided you wanted the 2-player variant, but hey, I really wanted the 4-player and this one's the 4-player, you would click this button right here to make the default. Which basically just means make the default one that gets launched if I press the play button. So yeah, that was a good question. Let's say, as that is going, one thing that I find that people don't use a lot is, so let's say I wanted to find out what the best games were on the Nintendo Entertainment System, right? So I click the filter button and I press, 4 stars, anything 4 stars and above, which I guess is 5 stars. You click that and you go, okay, well, here's all of the games. It's about 71 games out of about 700. But maybe I don't want to click that button every single time. Like, I really just want to see these games. You can click the filter button again and say, why don't I save this filter output, which, to be honest, is not just what I clicked on. So it's not just 4 stars, but also is determined by the section I'm in. This drop down is actually called the filter section, the filter drop down, which is why there's so many options here, because it's essentially a way to filter games. And so it uses this as a filter as well. The filter is that I'm on the Nintendo Entertainment System, which is why you don't see platform here as a filter, because there's not more than one option here to use. But if I press the all button, now all of a sudden there's more than one platform in this list. It's listing me out all the platforms. This filter button is dynamic to the games that are currently in view. Anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent there, but if I wanted to see all of the games with 4 stars under the Nintendo Entertainment System, I could create a new playlist and be like, best games of the NES, right? A unique name needs to be a name that's not anywhere else, right? So I say best games of the NES. The nested name is what you end up seeing. So if you wanted what you see different, so maybe you don't want it to be best games of the NES. Maybe you just want it to be the best games. Okay, well, nested name, best games. And then here, auto populate tab, you can see it's already checked and it already added the rules. Platform is equal to the Nintendo Entertainment System, and star rating is between 4 and 4.99. I guess there is no 5-star rating there. I can change that and just say, no, 5. No game is really 5 stars unless you set it that way. Or unless you're Sesame Street on the NES. For some reason, that game was 5 stars for like forever. Until enough people started voting for it. Anyway, which is why it's important, if you want to learn a little bit about the star rating stuff, it's important that there's a total community star rating votes, and that games under a specific threshold is not taken into consideration, or else you would get into a situation where something like Sesame Street would hit 5-star ratings because one person voted it as 5 stars. That is also adjustable under options, search, data search. You can see use community star ratings when filtering and have the minimum number of community ratings in order to actually use that value. And you can change that if you want. Anyway. Oh man, I closed the playlist without completing the playlist. The playlist will appear under the playlist filter. It will show you all of your playlists back in there. But if you wanted it to appear inside of your platform categories section, let's say I want it to appear under Nintendo Entertainment System, which is why I wanted to call it Best Games. That's it. So it should be under Consoles, under Nintendo Entertainment System. There's my Best Games. But hey, I wanted to add some more under Nintendo Entertainment System, but I don't want to really have to create them all myself. Well, there's the auto-generate playlist, which I can't use because it's interfering with the import that is still happening for MAME. But you can use this when LaunchBox is freed up to create generic stuff like an all game section, a favorite game section, genre based playlists, all that stuff specific to the Nintendo Entertainment System. And I believe that's the same for mostly every platform. You could do that. So if you stayed this long, I don't know what time it is right now. Oh, it's getting there, isn't it? Almost 3 hours long. This stream. So thank you for sticking with me here. If there's anything that you want me to really talk about, or you have any questions about any of these features that I have or have not talked about yet, let me know. And I will do that for you guys. Oh, and thanks for that follow. Storefronts? Storefront games. Focus, it's almost 11 p.m. there for you. Well, I won't be here for too much longer. I think I got a good 20 minutes left for me. But while we wait, Storefront games, highly recommended. That LaunchBox is built around the concept that we see all of your games. And so it's very good to have to import all of your games, and we do that here. I imported GOG, right? So as an example, I don't have this game on my computer, but GOG knows that I own it, or LaunchBox knows that I own it on GOG, which is this badge right here, or right here, this badge. And therefore, there's the whole concept of like managing the game, installing the game, deleting the game. All that stuff is managed inside of LaunchBox. So I could click this install button. It starts installing. I mean, it's going to probably have to open GOG Galaxy though, so this might have been a mistake. But it would install as best that we can through GOG Galaxy. And then it would give you the option of being able to like delete the game. Stuff would get updated. This not installed button would get updated to installed. Where is GOG Galaxy? Maybe I don't have it on this computer. I do. I might not be signed in. Yeah, you definitely have to have the storefront in question. Ready to go for us to integrate into it. Anyway, arcade is done, so that's going. But the point is that there's very much benefits to have that all in there. And Barney, you'd be interested in the WHD load on Amiga. I can show you that. Whether through our automated import process, whether through the manual import process, through single imports, multiple platform imports, through drag and drop imports. There's a lot of ways you can import games, but all of them have the distinction of being able to, and I haven't done a single platform import yet on this stream, so let's do that quickly. So do you know what WHD load is? So for people that don't, they're just files that are kind of, I mean, they're technically hard drive files of the game. That's what they are, right? And they have their own extensions, they have their own file name standard and file extension standard. I'm going through all the wrong stuff here. So you can see it ends with LHA, and then has this sort of weird file name where it's like, here's the name of the game underscore, here's the version of the game underscore, here's some information, the developer or something, or publisher of the game. underscore. Here's like the, I don't even know, the build of the game. I don't know. Bunch of numbers. If they're 2 names, they do this. Blade, Warrior. And so there's not, we have to basically be like, well, how is this put together? How can we parse this to make it make sense so that these names, it's like we're only selecting the name of the game, we're giving it the right amount of spaces, we're giving it the right amount of stuff, we're massaging these file names to make it so that we can then match those names to a name inside of our database. And so we developed a method to do so. And all you have to do is go through any of our processes. Oh, look at that. It finished downloading and installing Baldur's Gate while we were talking. We use RetroArch. I guess I will bypass. You shouldn't do this, but I'm going to bypass the dependency file section. So even our single platform import has this if you have an emulator that requires it. So on the last page, I basically said I want to use RetroArch, and this page is saying, hey, your emulator is saying that you need this file, one of these files. And then I'm bypassing it. It's like, well, you still haven't given us one of these files. You still want to proceed? Okay, well, we warned you. Okay, we'll go through this process. There's a lot of games in this folder. I probably should have just chosen a couple. I didn't. My mistake. I'm going to keep on that if there's multiple versions of the same game, I want to combine them into one game entry. This is basically saying if it finds a PDF file inside of your game folder and it's named after your game file, make it the manual of that game. Kind of saying that. Alright, now it's going to scan through my whatever thousands of games of Amiga, and it's going to present me the massaged names. So you will know whether it worked by the end when this process finishes. You don't have to know when it works after you've imported everything. You'll know in this step. And focus. Profiles option when? How many people do you want using the exact same version of LaunchBox? There you go. So you can kind of see that it worked here, right? 3D World Tennis. All spaces, even though the file name looks like this. All right, and then we're going to use these titles to try to find a match on the games database so that we can pull down the metadata and assign it to these games. And I had more than games than I thought. I have 3,085 games. You can see some of them are the same. So like all of these, for example, they're going to be combined into one game entry. And I'll be able to choose which version that I want. Right? Do I want to play the version 1 AGA game or the version 1 DE AGA 1653 game? I don't know, but I've got the choice now. Have you ever thought about creating a second instance of LaunchBox for your kids? I mean, that's essentially what a profile would do, right? A profile would essentially say, let's create 2 instances of LaunchBox. Like literally have a LaunchBox over here and a LaunchBox over here. And this one is going to have data files that contain these games. And this one is going to have data files that contains these games. And this one is going to link to these emulators. This one's going to link to those emulators. And it's like that kind of separation. You know, this one's going to be logged into this account. That one's going to be logged into that account. And so the difference between like having 2 launch boxes And then having profiles is essentially combining to one LaunchBox, so the application files are one, but the data files are still separated in the exact same way. I mean, that's one way to do it. You wouldn't have to download all the media again. That's actually not true. In fact, you wouldn't even have to set up anything again. You could literally set up LaunchBox. Do you want me to show you that? I'll show you that before the stream ends if you want to stick around. Anyway. Why not have profiles? Time. And not as much benefit. Right? That doesn't give you that true level of benefit that you even want, right? What you actually want is like, I just want these games to be available for my kids. And that's something else. That's like a little bit of a different feature that we would have to massage. All right, let's finish this arcade stuff really quickly, guys. I downloaded or I imported a bunch of arcade games. And here's a whole bunch of games. I don't have the CHD files. The CHD files are anything inside of the CHD required section. And so this actually gives you a nice list of files, CHD files that you need to get, which are basically hard drive files of the arcade games that existed in tandem with the ROM board that was there. So these are very special games, and that's why there's a special playlist just for that. These games should work for the most part, right? So if I wanted to play Alien vs. Predator, I could right here. And MAME should open. It was downloaded, it was installed, it was configured, it was all that good stuff. I'm sure it'll open on one of my secondary monitors, but it'll open somewhere. Ah, that's why it didn't open. Yes. Well, ED, I'll let you know. Let's see how the best way that I can do this. Do you guys, does it make sense that if I create a second instance of LaunchBox, let's do that. I'll do that so that you can see how that makes sense. Okay. That should play. I mean, it's opening up on like my fourth monitor. But it's playing.
Time to hunt. Time to hunt.
Okay. Now that we know that that works, the last thing that I want to do is, if you're a really big retro achievement fanatic and you have MAME and these are MAME games and you like them, but you wanted to earn achievements for them, this is not the set for you. The set that you want is the Final Burn Neo set, which is, if you can get, it's very similar to MAME. The file name conventions are very similar to MAME. Some of the files are the same as MAME, but it's not the same set. So you would get a Final Burn Neo set, and what you would do is you would import it through this single platform importer. It's a very specific set, and it fits into this importer, but I'll show you what that means. So I have a Final Burn Neo set right here. I'm going to say, well, I want it to be called Final Burn Neo, and I want you to scrape as arcade. So we know that the platform is basically arcade, so check the arcade platform for all of the metadata, but call the platform Final Burn Neo, and that'll give you some sort of separation. You'll want to choose, since retro, because nothing was selected there by default, it means that there's no link towards a Final Burn Neo platform and any of the emulators that I have imported. And so I go, well, I know that I want to select RetroArch, and I know that here's all of the cores that you have, and I know that the core is called FB Neo. So I choose that. That'll establish that link for me. Let's not download media for time or bezels. And what this one is, you'll say, I mean, if you have a MAME set imported, some of the files are named exactly the same. And so if you want all of your Final Burn Neo games to be installed, you have to do force import duplicate games. The second thing is, yeah, you kind of want the combined games there. And also, the short names are basically identical to MAME, so you'll want to choose to use MAME metadata. That's why this setting that everyone ignores is there. And then you'd press next, and here, this is going to be where a Final Burn Neo set has only games that work. Unlike MAME. MAME, like I went on and on about, I'd never uncheck unplayable game, because MAME includes more than stuff that actually is playable. But you don't have that problem with FB Neo. So what you'd want to do is you want to import everything, import all clones, uncheck all of these things, because I assume that, I mean, you can take your set and delete files that you don't want from it, assuming that you have a non-merged FB Neo set, and I hope that you do. And you probably don't want to create these playlists. They're very specific to MAME, and this is not MAME. And now you press next. It parses the actual files that you have on your system in that folder, and there it's listing me all the files. You can notice that it's using the MAME metadata, right? It basically uses some metadata file, XML file that goes, oh, I found a match of afighterg.zip, or probably afighterg, and that game is actually Action Fighter. So it gives it the actual human readable name. And this is how you know that you did it right, is when you have all human readable names all on the side. And now we finish. So now it's going to create a new Final Burn Neo platform, all linked up with retro achievements through the RetroArch integrated retro achievement experience. And that's why you'd use it. Another reason why you would use Final Burn Neo, they prioritize performance over accuracy. So it's a good set if you want it to have on like a very slow machine. Older machines, Android devices, Final Burn Neo is a much better set to use on an Android device versus a MAME set, right? Because MAME doesn't care about your performance. It is 100% prioritizing the accuracy of that game. You know, screw your computer. And then, so at least the benefit for me, I've got a secondary place, Final Burn Neo, where I'm going to have duplicate games, but at least all of those games will have retro achievement support. And if you care about that, this is a great way, and really the only way to import Final Burn Neo the right way into LaunchBox. And you can see it really didn't take me that long to do so. I mean, it's almost done, and it's also another 3,000 games or whatever it's going to be. Probably less. Yeah, it's probably a bit less after combining all of those games together. but you'll see a lot of duplicates. Final Burn Neo has a huge selection of arcade games. So let's look for Final Burn Neo, which for some reason is down here now. And sometimes it does that. Let's get it out of the root. Let's put it here. Okay. You'll see a lot of the same games, like even like Donkey Kong is there. Lots of different versions. And you can see that it has achievements. There's so much more that I could cover. So many more things that you can go through. You can see I've played this already, and if you know all the Final Burn Neo buttons, you set them all up and it's good to go. Retro achievements and all. Question is, am I gonna make it to the top here? I was feeling I'm not going to. Ah. Hearing the missing walking sound effects, which I probably have to download separately. Anyway, that is that. Let's get to what you guys in the stream want. Okay, so now that I have this set up, and you have kids or whatever your situation is, and you want to create a second thing, let's focus on this. Let's say that I wanted to bring over some of these platforms as a base. Which ones would I bring over? Let's say I wanted to bring over the Super Nintendo and maybe Nintendo GameCube. I don't know, what else would you bring over? Literally could bring over anything. PS2. Okay. So let's say I want to bring over some of this stuff. I can do this a number of ways. I can do any of the consoles that I've imported as long as there's no mention of N-Gage. Although that wouldn't be that complicated to do once you've set it up. Alright, let me do it this way, because this way makes sense, I think, to me. So let's say you have the latest setup file, and you're going to run through the installer again. Okay, and you're going to put it next to that one that we set up. I put it on the T drive, and I said LaunchBox Kids, let's call it. And I'm going to hit next. And we're going to run through the installer like this, and it's going to create a new version of LaunchBox right here. LaunchBox Kids. So who focus? Who here played the N-Gage when it was out? Who had one? Anybody? I'd be interested to hear about like how it felt to have one at the time. Especially if you were a kid at the time. Were you like, oh, I had this N-Gage and I was playing games, but I was around all of my friends that had like a Nintendo DS. They got to play Pokemon and I got to play Astro, your best mate had one. Oh, and Focus, you had one. How did that feel? He had Sonic N. Alright, so here you go. We have a LaunchBox Kids installed, and like before, what I said, I'm just gonna hit close. Well, there you go, Focus. You're already in your 20s. So you got one purposefully for something. You knew what you were getting into. Or like, this is so cool, gaming and like Nokia and a phone. No. On Game Noob, that actually wouldn't be hard to do. You wouldn't need a script for that. You wouldn't need a script for that. I mean, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Like, do you want two builds that have the same save files? That seems like a lot of work. Like, if the goal was, I just want one RetroArch, but I want two different save file locations. Like, why not just have two RetroArches? So you're talking about one LaunchBox, two emulators type of thing. Almost like two emulator profiles, but one launch. That's like the opposite of what we're doing here. Okay. Not really the opposite, but you can see I bypassed the import option, and here I am. Okay. I bypassed the welcome wizard. I am now in a LaunchBox with nothing in there. If I go to the data files, this is the wrong build. Let's put the builds next to each other, maybe. LaunchBox Kids. I got nothing in there. But what do I want in there? I don't know. Which platforms would you want? Maybe your kids want to play the Game Boy Advance. Maybe they want to play the PlayStation 2. I mean, I got one more in me here. We didn't really do the Xbox. There. Right, I mean, at that point, we've essentially said, hey, these are the platforms that I want in my LaunchBox Kids place. Well, here are the emulators that I have. So you could take the emulators file and move it over. That would use the same emulators if you care. Or you could just download new emulators. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Either way, right? Or you could link them up manually. Well, let's take the emulators file just for... So at this point, it's going to use... Actually, it probably won't use the exact emulator. I'm going to have to still point them, but they'll be created, and I can just do some pointing if I want to do that. Anyway, so even if we stopped right there, and What exactly did you want? You wanted the media. You didn't want to redo the media, like images or even videos. Well, I think someone said it. The best way is symlinking. The easiest way is symlinking. You could do this all in LaunchBox, but I don't really recommend that. What makes more sense is to turn this image folder, let's say this video folder, the manuals folder, whatever the folder that you want. And so, I mean, let's just do images and videos because they're all basically going to be the same. I'm going to open a command prompt. And hey, I haven't done this in a while, so going to be some trial and error, but you could just look up Symlinks and you'll get the commands. We're going to the T drive, we're going to go into LaunchBox Kids, and now I'm going to say mklink -d images, and I'm going to link to the LaunchBox images. Let's see if I got that right. There. So now saying, well, a symbolic link, oops, the symbolic link was created for the folder images, and it's linking to T LaunchBox images. So if I go in here, and here's images, here's all of the stuff in the LaunchBox images. And I could do the same for videos. So videos, LaunchBox, videos, and you can do this for manuals. Potentially, if you're managing the games. Don't manage your games this way. But if you're just reading the games and playing the games, I don't think that you'll have problems. But that's what you get for wanting to have many people access the exact same thing all at once. Yeah, don't be managing the same database. Or the same files. That's just Windows 101. Okay, so if I open LaunchBox right now, I should see a couple of the platforms, 3 of the platforms that we had already imported. That was over there, and you should see the images for them that we downloaded. That's a good question. How are you both working at the same time? How are you playing the same thing on the same computer at the same time? Yeah, now you're talking about server client functionality. That's different. There you go, conjoined twins. We have an answer for everything. And look at that. I didn't bring over my platform categories, but my platforms are there, and everything, all my images are there. As long as I'm not going around editing all this stuff, right? Because LaunchBox is a file management solution as well, kind of. You should be fine. You also have emulators, but the emulators were, I realized while I was doing it, the emulators were relative paths. So you would have to fix that. So let's say PCSX2, I would essentially just browse to the emulator at this point, which would be T. I installed it in LaunchBox, emulators, PCSX2. Right, and now it's a different relative path that we'll use. We love relative paths. And because that emulator is set up properly, I can click Dark Cloud and it should play it. There it goes. I don't know why you can't see it, but it's there. Can I get out of full screen mode? Not really? Okay. I know how you could see it. Just for this. There we go. Now you could see the game. Okay, you don't actually have to do this either. You can copy over your emulators folder and create a symlink for, yeah, the emulators folder. I didn't do that. Well, you could. Just like EB's suggesting. Everything can just be a symlink. This is basically like a thin LaunchBox client. It's using basically everything of your master LaunchBox. Yeah, you could go crazy. You can make almost everything in that LaunchBox folder a symlink to your master LaunchBox folder. That's right, gaming. You're just gonna symlink your life. Yeah, symlinking is definitely like a very old school concept. It's been in Linux a very long time. It can get kind of like abstract the more that you go down the whole symlink concept. You can symlink a file to have a file in multiple different places. If they're already outside of LaunchBox directory and it's a full path, you actually won't have to do anything. Because if LaunchBox has that full path, like all the way to like the drive, then just copying the emulator's XML file will work, right? Because that new LaunchBox will still access it from the same place. Yeah, there you go. If you need a GUI of some kind, I'm sure there's many apps out there that'll integrate into File Manager so that you can create your own symlinks. And that's how I would do it, if that makes sense. I don't think I would ever need to do it. And there's something to be said about like server client functionality. That would be pretty cool, right? Like actual LaunchBox server on a server somewhere or on your main computer. And because it's a server, it can take care of any of the problems that you might have, or that Astro Bob was bringing up about file locking, somebody using the same thing on the same thing. So imagine like another computer somewhere else, like on your TV, all it's doing is just like reading your main computer's LaunchBox, and that main computer of LaunchBox is determining what gets sent to that TV computer, what games appear there, and all that crap. What you can play, what you can't play. It facilitates like image streaming, all that stuff. There you go. And I think I'll end now that focus is is happy before he becomes unhappy again. Let's call it a good stream. Thank you everybody for joining and joining the celebration. Remember, we have the celebration around for, I don't know why I'm saying that again. I assume everybody knows. So yeah, hit up the celebration, find out what's next. I think I'm going to be streaming with Astrobob again on Friday. So join us for that one. Bring your questions. We're going to try to play games together, even though we're not in the same continent together. We're going to see how that goes. That might not be great, but it might be great. I don't know. We'll find out. We will answer even more of the questions that we hear people have. And we'll talk a little bit about Linux, maybe. So yeah, good to see everybody. Have a good one. And enjoy the rest of your celebration week. And happy birthday, LaunchBox, I guess. 12 years. Here's for another 12. Take care, everybody. See you guys on Friday.